Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final boarding call for the good ship SS tomorrow.
Today on The Friendly Futurist, we chat to IBM. And welcome back to another episode here on the good ship SS Tomorrow. And today's guest doesn't really need introduction. It's IBM. And, they're a legacy brand. They've been around for over 100 years. They've been in the forefront of technology ever since. And it's a really big thrill when I get representatives from the Australian office saying they had listened to the podcast and they want to come on the show. You're never going to say no to that opportunity. Now, the last big tech player that I really spoke to on this scale, this level, is Fujitsu. You might have to go back to season 10, episode 7. And we had a similar conversation here today with Asanga, who's based at the IBM's Melbourne office. We had a chat all things AI, where it's come from the last 10 years, and also all integrated other emerging technologies, smart cities. We even talked about how this could even help CEOs make better decisions. We maybe even with little breadcrumbs. So I had such a great in-depth conversation with him about a future episode about quantum computing. Anyhow, Asanga from IBM Australia is coming up after this break. And welcome back to another episode. I'm very excited today because normally I get startups, but today we've got a legacy brand. We've got IBM and we've got a representative from Melbourne, Asanga Lokusooriya, and he's joining us online. Asanga, welcome.
Thank you, dear. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And I'm actually the big thrill that actually someone in IBM's listened to my podcast and has reached out. I think it's just a huge, huge honor. Now, as with all my guests, can you just give us a quick rundown about your journey so far and start wherever you want to start?
Oh, absolutely. And Dave, thanks again for having me on the podcast. I think what a topic to discuss. And this is highly polarized discussion, right? I think there's, on one side, people are saying that this is going to be the savior of humanity. AI is going to save us and elevate us to another level. And on the other side, we've got people talking about what's called P-Doom. And this is the end of the humanity and all that. But luckily, we are the friendly futurists. And
yes.
Right. And I'm I'm a cautious optimist, put it that way. So my thinking is coming from, I suppose, my background. So I've been a technologist in all my career, but I placed myself in this intersection of business and IT. And from a business perspective, I've been in a number of retail, supply chain, public sector and finance kind of industry sectors. And public sector included things like education, health, and public safety. From a technology perspective, my coding and DBA kind of upbringing got me on to data strategy, architecture, and transformation. And over the last perhaps 10 and a half years, it's been emerging technologies. So we're talking about Web3, blockchain, the likes of metaverse, remember that, and also AI and machine learning. So it kind of got me rethinking, what were established as the paradigms for technology in the past. But what a time that I find myself at IBM, and this is the place, and it's the right time and the right place. And I'm part of the leadership group for IBM Consulting in Australia. I also led the data and AI delivery capability for IBM Australia until recently, but now I'm focusing in the market and largely focusing on public sector and financial services. So that's a very quick, it got me there.
Yes. So from your perspective, what is some of the main challenges, not just in AI, but in emerging technology today?
Look, I think emerging technology went through a number of challenges. And I think, I mentioned metaverse earlier. Some companies, as Facebook converted to Meta, right? And I think, some organizations place major bets in some of the emerging technologies. And I was kind of thinking, are we looking at AI in the same lens? But I think there is something different about AI. And even if you look at the likes of blockchains, and technologically, they are really, really advanced in thinking. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin, that still is surviving and hasn't been hacked, in a meaningful way. So what that means is technology is good, but its adoption and its application matters. And I think AI is coming into that space where it is intersecting with what we do and who we are and how we identify ourselves. So I think that's the biggest shift I'm seeing right now, with AI at least, as an emerging technology.
Yeah. Actually, I think I like that point too, because when we're talking about the metaverse, people seem to forget it's not one platform, it's one technology. It's actually the intersection of multiple technologies in real life. This is me being the scholar coming out, but I think it's very good because it's far from dead, put it that way.
I agree. I think the convergence point you just mentioned, which I think is the catalyst for AI as well. If you think about the data, the availability of data of the internet, social media, creating lots of data and compute and algorithmic kind of, advances, the neural networks and back propagation calculations and all that, they all came into this perfect combination to create AI. So I think that convergence is such an important point, and it will continue to be the case going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole reason what really caught my eye when you guys reached out to me is about this concept of building smart cities. So how are data and AI and other technologies help to build smart cities from your point of view?
Look, I think data is going to be key, not just smart cities, everything, right? And we know that AI relies on data. Good data is good AI. And it's not different when we're talking about smart cities. But I think, Dave, we should take a step back and look at what is a smart city? What do we mean by smart cities, right? And when you're talking about smart, is it smart because we have access to every corner of the city? Is it because we know what's going on? Is it because that there is control over what happens in the city? For example, an accident at an intersection gets notified immediately, so you can send emergency services. Someone having a cardiac arrest, and then you can divert the services to that person. Or you can, refine your energy consumption based on usage, or use the public faces in more effective manner. So there's a whole range of things that you can think of. But what makes it smart is it the availability and access to that information, or is it that we have created a city that's right for us as humans? It's smart in the way that its livability has kind of, created, and it's my city. I feel that I'm part of it, and I have the conveniences and ways of life, living in that place. So from that perspective, I think we've got to think about what this smart means.
Yeah, well, yes, sometimes it's probably no right answer right now, but I think, maybe having aspects of some sort of digital twin. I know Perth's got one. They can actually tell plan out when the garbage trucks can come around and pick up the rubbish at the right time, sort of, for example. But yeah, that's a very interesting open question, I guess. What makes a smart city smart?
Yeah, I think if you think about some of the cities obviously in the Western countries, there are a number of examples, but also in the Asian region as well. China has a number of those, India, and also Korea as well. So some of those cities are literally, looking at that leapfrogging, and you don't have the infrastructure existing for a long period of time. And that allows you to kind of create the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure that you need to drive some of the smarts behind it.
And I guess there's also a role too for some autonomous AI agents in designing these well, I guess the cities of the future. I think that's where most of us are going to live anyhow. So I think it's a very important topic.
I agree. I think autonomy is an important point in that one. I think automation is something that we've had for a long time, right? I think we automated lights at sunset, the lights come on and they're not on all the time. But autonomy, it might be that it knows that the daylight saving has kicked in and it automatically needs to adjust that. Or a light bulb has gone off, that it needs to do something, it'll place the order for replacement light. So it's taking action as well in the autonomy. So you're right. I think we're going into the more autonomy space, even with smart cities.
Yeah. And also, can this be applied, say, to other aspects, say the energy transition, when we've got building smart grids? Because I know here in Perth in January, February, gets to about 40, and we've got a lot of solar panels on the roof. I think in this state, it's 45% of the houses have got solar panels on the roof. It's going to overload poor old Western Power when there's so many excess oversupply. Yeah, so is there a way we can actually use that as well to make things a bit more efficient?
That's a good question. Well, I've been thinking about the pressure that cities in general will have in terms of how do you use this data? You have to compute, you have to process this information. And when you process it, that means it's going to consume energy. Now, you could look at large kind of data centers and more concentrated processing that needs to be done. Or you could think in the way that we are creating, even if you look at AI, it's not large language models per se. There are smaller language models as well, what we call quantized models. So every large model has a mini version. I mean, ChatGPT has minis and Gemini has minis, and every other foundation model you can think of has a mini model. So what's happening is they're becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. So you could be seeing these things in your devices, in your glasses very soon, and of course on your mobile phones, etc. So there is a little bit of a distribution of that process starting to take shape as well. Does that mean we could use that energy better and when we need it, and to reduce the latency? Think about EVs and autonomous vehicles coming in, and your signals need to be so responsive. And it's not about processing something overnight and getting that to you. It's then and there on the spot. So the energy consumption could grow during the day when there's a big supply as well.
Yep. And I guess that's why batteries come to their own as well. So it backs it up when middle winter when there's less production. Yeah, I think it's the way forward. It's really good. It's really interesting.
I think it'll, in terms of some of the countries, and when you're looking at smart cities, and I think depending on where the city is located, and some of these things could be really problematic, and while the other things might be problems for other cities. So I think I was kind of thinking about is there some kind of a baseline, some kind of what's the key indicator of a good smart city? But I don't think there is one. There are different opinions being put forward, or frameworks, or in some cases, a lot more usable frameworks. The likes of ISO has a smart city kind of indicator, and United Nations has one as well. And so it's OECD, right? So that the OECD one is more of a framework, but they're not common. They're different frameworks and KPIs. And I think that reflects the differences between smart cities and its definition and what it means to us.
Yeah. Now, moving right along, and I have covered the chief AI officer in a previous episode with another guest, but I was thinking of an interesting case study that caught my eye. It was the IBM's Institute for Business Value CEO. Can you elaborate for my listeners what this is all about?
Absolutely. So IBM has been producing a CEO study for a number of years now, and we have released our latest CEO study. Now, this version that we released is talking about 5 key mind shifts that CEOs are looking at to adopt and to make use of AI, and what they're thinking, what's top of mind for them. And by the way, this has over 2,300 CEOs interviewed
Wow.
around the world. So the good thing is that 23% of them are based in Asia Pacific region. So it's not something that happens in the US, for example. In fact, it's only 15% of CEOs coming from US.
Wow.
And 30% from Europe. So it's a good representation for us in Asia Pacific and in Australia. So what we're hearing is that the top priorities for CEOs are forecastability, ability to forecast accurately what goes on. I think it's true for all our lives as well, right? And I think we just don't know how things are going to turn out. Last 3 years is not a predictor of the next 3 or the 5 years, right?
Yes.
It's more like last 6 months is like to give us some guidance. And then we are talking about the second priority being their productivity and the need for profitability. And that makes sense as well because of these business models are shifting, markets are shifting, and the way that they need to be operating and organizing is changing. And the third priority is how do we innovate our products and services? And that's coming up as again, the consumer preferences, the citizen expectations. All these things are shifting really fast as the technology and the other things are moving in the world. So they're the three kind of priorities that we are seeing coming from this report. But it's a very, very informed report, very detailed, publicly available right now.
Oh, fantastic. And as this podcast is about the future from IBM's point of view, how do you envision the world, say, from the 2030s and beyond?
I think it's fair to say that all the predictions have been wrong so far.
Yes.
Let me join mine as well. I think.
That's the whole fun of it. It's just.
So
I think I go about a 40% strike rate so far. I like to keep it up.
Exactly right. I think the language models kind of changed everything in the last few years, right? And I think AI has been around. IBM has been around since 1950s, doing AI research, and the transformer that came in that changed the way the generative AI kind of works. It then became a consumer thing, and the adoption went through the roof, and the life was different. So when we're kind of looking at where is that going, because that was the biggest catalyst since I think the internet, and that's important for us to kind of have a perspective as to where that might be going. So we know that language models have become multimodal. So that's vision, it's audio, it's all sorts of things. The next kind of frontier that all the foundation model builders are pushing for is AGI. And this is the artificial general intelligence. And even beyond that, I think there is the push for artificial superintelligence, right? So we're going beyond these language models, talking about as a person, what's the level of intelligence that a person has, and how can we give that to these models? So there's one question that have we reached the artificial general intelligence right now? I think Sam Altman might say, I've heard him talking about, 5 years ago, if you describe what ChatGPT does today, and people might say, well, actually, that's general intelligence, because you can ask any question, it'll answer. Yes, it might hallucinate at times, but largely it'll know everything that you might be asking about. So is that AGI and the extension of the ASI, artificial superintelligence, but in some areas it's already reached that. So PhD level science, PhD level maths, PhD level stuff means it's already gone super, right? And then companies are investing. And if you think about Ilya Sutskever, who is the AI researcher from OpenAI, who departed OpenAI and started his own company called SSI, Safe Superintelligence. And the hope and the work that goes towards that is massive. So how are these going to impact the future? I mean, is this a hype? Is it real? Meta recently ended up getting a large number of lead researchers in the world, and by actually, giving them a lot of incentives to join Meta, and they came from OpenAI and various other places as well. And it was highly publicized. And he offered $32 billion to Ilya Sutskever for his SSI company. And Ilya said, no, thank you.
Wow.
So, looking into the future, you've got to start thinking all this information that we're getting about where the AI is going, how is that going to change? Well, I think there are a couple of things that we know. We will start working with AI on a regular basis, right? We've got to think about our businesses, our organizations having to work with or wanting to work with and replacing cognitive capabilities with AI. It is going to change the way we learn and what we need to know. So there's this range of things that we are seeing, the grassroots changes, will become the norm in the 2030s. I think we will get used to bipedal robots. We will get used to having models sitting with us on our watches and glasses. So I think in one sense, it's going to be a very different world. But Dave, if you kind of think back to the prior generations looking at internet or computers, that's a very different jump.
Yeah.
Is it like that?
Yeah, well, I guess, it's so true. I mean, if you look back, say, the 2010s and today, it's, yes, there's technology, but it's a different world because we did not see this in 2015.
Right.
We probably were playing around with AI. We probably were building chatbots, but we weren't expecting large language models. That's
right.
So I think it's very interesting. And also I think an interesting point too that, all this AI development, when are we going to treat it like a human? Are we going to treat it like a sentient being? That's probably the biggest open question right now. I mean, there's so much discussion, about how we're raising AI and how ethical moral we can make it. I think it's going to be a fascinating frontier. I said, again, it's probably no right or wrong answer at the moment, but questions we need to have,
100%. I think when you're talking about, at the moment, these models are kind of limited to language and innocent back and forth talking. But if you think about giving it agency, that means it's seeing things, it's changing things in the real world. That kind of, even the same intelligence that we've got right now could have a very different impact when it can do things and it can observe things with us. So going this into autonomous cars and robots and drones and things like that, they'll become part of, our interactive life. And that's going to change to a degree, quite a large degree from today. But then you talk something about responsible, safe, and, dependable kind of AI. And then now you're bringing it back to what IBM is about. And I think we've been really focused on the responsible aspect of AI. And most of the work that we're doing with our clients is about governance. It's about really understanding what does it mean to safely adopt AI in organizations. And I think taking back to the smart cities conversation, and these are the things that we've got to grapple with and make sure that we are actually on top of before they proliferate more than what we are seeing. Imagine a sensor, some kind of a CCTV or some other sensor, counting people going to a park. I think that's useful information. Then you can see the usage patterns, et cetera, et cetera. But what if it gets extended for restricting movement? Now we've kind of, changed the purpose of that counting to some other thing. So then it starts to impact civil liberties, and it's going to start impacting people being recognized using biometrics without them knowing. So there's a fine line between responsible use and the scope creep or the purpose creep into these use cases. So it's up to us to actually stay alert and, like you, what you're doing in terms of kind of raising the awareness.
I'm glad I'm part of the conversation, actually. So I'm doing my conversations this afternoon, Asanga, but is there anything I didn't ask but should?
I think you've covered a whole bunch of areas, and I think this is such a wide-ranging topic. And I think, how we like to live, how we like to find conveniences and safety and ability to avoid traffic jams and go to work or stay home and work. And we have the energy abundance and we can live the lives that we want. I think these are really awesome kind of aspirations for us, and it's within our grasp, right? And I think, we talked about the challenges with it as well, the responsible AI, how the purpose creep could come into the picture. But I think we haven't touched on what does it mean to be human and human experience.
Yeah.
I think you kind of touched on it. It's a short conversations, but that could open a whole different ball game.
Well, yeah, I guess that's so true. I mean, with all this advanced technology, well, I kind of see it is that we're going to live in like a symbiotic relationship. So I think us bringing back the humanity, I think probably will be more equilibrium.
Yeah.
Equilibrium back into the fold.
Yeah, 100%. I think, carbon-based or silicon-based, what's life at the end of the day? What does it mean to be human? But if you think about in more practical terms as well, the future of work, how is that going to change? What decisions do organizations need to make today in terms of kind of thinking through it? Is it wait and see, or should we jump in now? I think that CEO report highlighted a whole bunch of those thinking as well. I think it was at 62, 63% of CEOs are saying that, look, it's going to change. The potential for productivity is really high. But here's the flip side. They're saying, look, we've got to make changes now, and it's going to make people uncomfortable. So 53% of them are saying they're already making changes that people are feeling quite uncomfortable about. But they know that they have to, right? So that's a whole new area to actually go on. What should we do as individuals and as businesses today in anticipation of these changes coming into where we live or where we work?
Fantastic. That'd be a great thing to wrap the show up. Before we go, Asanga, where else can we find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I like to share perspectives, and particularly as we are kind of now looking at, here's another topic, Dave, very last minute, quantum, right? This is going to change again. So when I see these things coming up, I like to assess what does it mean? What does it mean for us? And what does it mean for our clients and our organization? So I like to share my thoughts on LinkedIn. So you can find me quite easily on LinkedIn.
Yep. I actually might have to bite you back to chat I think quantum's a whole episode in itself. I might have to bite you back a bit later in the series. Asanga, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure chatting to you this afternoon.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening. The Friendly Futurist is a Podcast West production and has been produced and edited by me, Dave Munn. If you love this show, please leave us a 5-star review on your favourite platform. That way it can help me grow. Until next time, friends, remember to stay curious and the future is user-friendly.
Another Podcasts West production.
This podcast is just for educational purposes and it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or advisor. Please do your homework and seek professional help before you take on any adventures.